Have you ever noticed how completely bizarre people act the second they step into an elevator? Seriously, it's like a glitch in our human programming. The doors close, nobody speaks, nobody makes eye contact. Instead, everyone instantly pulls out their phones and just stare at these glowing rectangles, pretending to be deeply absorbed in something incredibly important. For those 10 seconds, we all silently agree to perform this really weird ritual of looking occupied. And that probably feels entirely normal to you. But that's only because we've all been living inside this collective performance for way, way too long. So welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to dissect a fascinating analysis that points to a terrifying but ultimately kind of liberating idea that a massive chunk of modern life is basically just an unconscious performance.
Because I bet one day, usually at the absolute worst possible moment, maybe you're sitting in gridlock traffic or you're just mindlessly brushing your teeth on a Tuesday night, a thought just hits you out of nowhere. What exactly are we all doing? Why does everyone act so completely convinced that this system makes sense when, let's be honest, most of us are just utterly exhausted? The loop is absolutely relentless, isn't it? You wake up, check notifications, consume stimulation, perform your productivity, distract yourself, sleep, and repeat the whole shebang. For so many of us, life has started to feel a lot less like vibrant living and way more like an exhausting routine of constant maintenance.
And the strangest part of it all? Almost nobody stops long enough to actually question it. But why is that? Well, psychology tells us that the human brain absolutely hates uncertainty. In fact, studies show that ambiguity activates the exact same stress systems in our bodies as physical danger. Your mind would literally rather accept a painful, exhausting script than have no script at all. Because underneath everything, society relies on an entirely unconscious agreement. I mean, think about it. Money only has value because we collectively believe it does. Status and careers, they only matter because we constantly perform them and validate them for each other.
Okay, let's dive into this psychological layer. Part 1. Wearing the social mask.
To function in this weird system we've built, we develop what the famous psychologist Carl Jung called the persona. It's essentially the social mask we put on to function in everyday society. Now, at first, this mask is incredibly useful, right? It protects you, it helps you fit in, and it gets you through the daily grind. But slowly, something kind of disturbing starts to happen. People stop just wearing the mask, and they start actually becoming it. You become the hardworking employee, the funny friend, the emotionally detached guy, or the hyper-independent woman. We repeat these roles so often that we eventually completely confuse the performance for our actual true selves.
Which leads us to part 2, the architecture of distraction.
As we over-identify with these masks, silence itself starts to become a very real threat. We do literally everything we can to avoid it because the modern digital world constantly fills that silence with invisible psychological commands. Commands like, be attractive,
Be productive, work harder, hustle more.
Be optimized, be visible, make sure you're important. Our nervous systems are absorbing these commands every single day. And after enough exposure to it all, we completely stop asking if these desires are even ours to begin with. We just obey.
And this brilliantly illustrates a point made by the philosopher Michelle Foucault. He argued that modern society controls people psychologically through what he called normalization. Eventually, you don't even need society to judge you. You just start monitoring, judging, and punishing yourself. The prison moves entirely inside your own head. You literally become both the prisoner and the guard. You're policing your own productivity on Slack, or you're optimizing your own hobbies just so they look good online. It perfectly explains why modern exhaustion feels so bizarre. We aren't physically chained to our desks or our phones, and yet we feel completely psychologically trapped.
To cope with this trap, what do? We turn to distraction. Long before smartphones were ever a thing, philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer noticed a pattern in human behavior that he called the pendulum. Basically, we swing endlessly between desire and boredom. When we lack something, say a promotion at work or a shiny new car, we suffer from that lack. But the very second we finally get it, the relief fades incredibly fast, and we're just left feeling bored again. So the crucial takeaway here is that the chase itself becomes addictive. We chase status, consumerism, external validation, not because those things actually fulfill us, but because the constant pursuit distracts us from our own internal emptiness.
And that brings us to part 3, when the script fails.
Eventually, for absolutely everyone, reality creates cracks in this carefully constructed performance. It might be through a bad breakup, a massive career failure, or just a severe case of burnout. The script just stops working. This brings us to a really profound warning from Carl Jung. He said, "What remains unconscious eventually directs your life, and you will call it fate." Just let that sink in for a second. Think about how many people repeat the exact same emotional patterns for years, the same insecurities, the same fears, the same self-sabotaging behaviors, just playing out in different environments. That happens because the fears and uncertainties that we cover up with constant distraction don't just magically disappear. They reorganize themselves unconsciously, and they constantly drive our actions from the shadows.
Part 4. Meaning over achievement.
So, why are people following the societal script more rigorously than ever before, yet feeling totally disconnected and emotionally flat? Well, Viktor Frankl understood deeply that humans can actually endure incredible suffering just as long as they believe it has meaning. But without that meaning, even the most comfortable, optimized, successful lives become psychologically unbearable. The grand fantasy of modern life is that if you just get the degree, get the job, and follow the sequence, fulfillment is just going to automatically arrive at your doorstep. But external achievement is simply not the same thing as internal meaning.
Which brings us to what we can call the modern paradox. Today we have massive, unprecedented amounts of surface-level stimulation, but a really severe lack of core fulfillment. We have endless digital connection, but very little true intimacy. We are absolutely drowning in information, yet we're starving for wisdom. And obviously, social media has intensified this to an extreme degree. We now constantly compare our messy, behind-the-scenes reality to millions of carefully edited, highly curated lives. It just creates this ambient, constant sense of insecurity.
Finally, Part 5. The freedom of awareness. Now, I know realizing all of this might sound a bit depressing at first, but recognizing the system isn't a crisis. It's actually a profound awakening. And you might already sense this in those rare, completely unoptimized moments of stillness. A late-night drive with no destination, listening to the rain hit your window, taking a walk alone after midnight. These moments, they temporarily interrupt the relentless psychological noise. And for a few fleeting seconds, you remember that there is still a conscious observer inside of you. Someone who's still watching, still questioning, and still searching beneath all those layers of the persona.
Embracing that observer leads to what we can call psychological adulthood. This is basically the ability to hold contradiction and complexity without just collapsing into simplistic certainty. The deepest mistake modern culture makes is trying to convince you that life should be constantly optimized, efficient, and emotionally linear. But real human existence, it is not linear. It is fragmented, it's emotional, it's totally irrational, it's beautiful, it's painful, and it is entirely temporary. You can be deeply hopeful and completely terrified at the exact same time.
And accepting that messy complexity is where true peace actually begins. Not the peace of absolute certainty, because remember, nobody truly knows what they are doing, but the peace of participation. It means choosing to live awake rather than just running on automatic pilot. It means choosing your values deliberately instead of just inheriting whatever your social media feed hands you. It means honestly examining your patterns, your fears, and your deepest desires. True freedom isn't about being free from suffering or uncertainty. It's about being free from unconsciousness.
Which leaves us with the absolute most important question you can ask yourself. The question that strips away the persona, cuts right through the noise and distraction, and demands total honesty from you. Who am I when nobody is watching? Take a moment to really sit with that today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this sparks a journey toward finding your own genuine meaning.